I taste the dust of forgotten years. It settles on me like a fine shroud, a testament to the stillness that has become my world. I exist within a small, dark universe of wood and velvet, a space no larger than a prayer. The air is thick with the scent of cedar and something else, something unspeakable that clings to the grain of my prison, the faint, metallic tang of a dried tear. Light is a memory, a ghost that sometimes intrudes as a thin blade when the lid is lifted, cutting through the gloom before vanishing again. My existence is measured not by sunrises, but by these brief, painful interruptions. The world outside is a symphony of muffled pressures and tremors. I feel the deep groan of the house settling, the distant rumble of thunder that vibrates through the floorboards and up into my small frame, the soft, rhythmic thump of a heartbeat against the wood when she holds the box to her chest. But mostly, there is silence, a heavy, profound silence that is not an absence of sound, but a presence in itself. It is the sound of a room holding its breath. Sometimes, a hand will find its way into my world. The lid creaks open, a sound like an old bone breaking, and the stale air stirs. The fingers that touch me are hesitant, their warmth a fleeting shock against my cold surface. They trace my edges with a reverence usually reserved for holy relics. It is not a touch of use, or of play, or of preparation. It is the touch of remembrance, a desperate attempt to feel something that is no longer there. The pressure of a thumb on my soul is not the firm press of a foot about to take on the world. It is the hollow weight of a ghost, and in that touch, the dust of years dissolves, and the silence breaks. The warmth pulls me back to a time before the wood, before the darkness, a time of light and air, and voices that hummed with a current of pure, unadulterated hope. I wasn't in a box then. I was on a shelf, in a room painted the color of a pale yellow sun. The light was constant, pouring through a window that overlooked a garden, and I would absorb its warmth all day, feeling alive, expectant. There were two voices then, a melody and a harmony. One was low and steady, a gentle rumble, like distant, friendly thunder. The other was high and clear, like wind chimes in a summer breeze. They spoke of things I could not understand, but I understood the feeling behind the words. I felt it in the way her hands would lift me from the shelf, her fingers tracing my tiny laces. "Look how perfect," she would whisper, her breath a warm cloud against my surface. The other voice would answer, the sound vibrating through the floor. "He'll have your feet." Stubborn. A soft laugh would follow, a sound that made the very air in the room seem to sparkle. I was part of a plan, a beautiful, intricate design for a future that felt as solid and real as the shelf I sat upon. I was a promise, a symbol of a beginning. They would talk about journeys, about the feel of grass and the warmth of sand. They were mapping out a world for me to walk upon. I was not just an object. I was the vessel for a first step, the starting line of a great adventure. I remember the day he brought my other half. I had been alone on the shelf, a single statement. He placed my twin beside me, completing the pair. "Now he's ready," he'd said, his voice thick with emotion. For a time, we sat together, two small, identical promises, in a room filled with light. We felt the vibrations of their life around us, the music they played, the rhythm of their steps, the soft murmur of their conversations late into the night as they planned and dreamed. I was meant to feel the soft curl of toes, the gentle pressure of a heel. I was meant to be scuffed on pavement, stained with mud, and worn with love until my seams frayed. That was my destiny. Then the music changed. The harmony in the voices began to fray. The laughter grew thin, replaced by long stretches of the silence I would come to know so well. The high, clear voice became fragile, often breaking. The low, steady voice became a strained whisper. The light in the room still poured in, but it felt different, colder. It no longer warmed me. It only illuminated the dust that was beginning to gather. One day, the clear voice was gone. The house fell into a different kind of quiet, not the peaceful quiet of sleep, but the sharp, sterile quiet of a hospital. The low voice returned alone. The sound of his footsteps was heavier, a slow, dragging rhythm of defeat. I felt the tremor of the door to the yellow room closing, and it did not open again for a long time. When it finally did, it was her hand that reached for me. But the warmth was gone. Her touch was ice. There was no whisper, no gentle trace of a finger, just a desperate, clutching grip, as if she were drowning, and I was the last solid thing in the world. She didn't lift my twin, only me. She held me to her face, and I felt the first drop of moisture, sudden, shocking wetness that soaked into my leather. It was not rain. It was hotter, saltier. It was the essence of the silence, given form. Then came the sound, a terrible, guttural cry that seemed to be torn from the very center of the earth. It was a sound of such profound loss that it swallowed all the other sounds in the world. It was the sound of a future collapsing into a single, unbearable moment. In that moment, I was no longer a promise. I was an anchor, holding her to her grief. She carried me from the yellow room, her sobs shaking my small frame. The lid of the wooden box was open. She placed me inside, on the soft velvet that felt like the lining of a wound. Her hand lingered for a moment, cold and trembling. Then the lid closed, and the light went out for the first and final time. Silence is not emptiness. It is a substance. It has weight. It is the shape of what is gone. My purpose was not to feel the ground, but to hold the weight of that shape. I was not made for a journey, but to be the final destination. My leather will never know the scuff of a playground or the dampness of morning dew. It will only know the dry chill of this box and the intermittent, sorrowful warmth of her hand. My laces will never be tied in a clumsy, childish bow. They will remain as they are, perfectly, uselessly pristine. I am a monument to a life that was measured in heartbeats, heard only through a wall of skin. I am a relic of a love that was fierce and boundless, but had nowhere to go. Humans build monuments of stone to remember their wars and their kings. They build them of wood and leather to remember their children. They measure time in the turning of pages and the ticking of clocks. I measure it in the layers of dust, in the spaces between the sobs. They measure life in breaths taken. I measure it in the one that never was. I am a shoe, a single, tiny baby shoe. My other half is a question that will never be answered, a ghost that walks beside me in this eternal darkness. I was meant for a first step. Instead, I became a last memory,